Welcome to Shalom World Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Real Women, where we talk about the real issues facing modern-day Catholic women and how we can navigate this journey with grace and purpose. My name is Von Hosking.
And I'm Karen Doyle.
In today's episode of the Real Women series, we're going to be exploring, I think, perhaps our favourite topic, and one that is absolutely crucial in the lives of women. And that is the topic of sisterhood and how we as women need and can grow meaningful connections and friendships.
Sisterhood is essential to the soul. It's an irreplaceable, vital component to the formation of women.
Absolutely. And I think our relationships with men are really important. But nothing gives meaning and context to our lives like those bonds that we have with other women, because there's what we're going through resonates with them and they understand, I guess, our struggles and our journey in a unique way. So to help us unpack this topic today of sisterhood and the need to build meaningful connections and relationships, we're joined by Jess Schepis.
Jessica Schepis has been married to her husband for 10 years, mother of 2 children, and lives in Melbourne, Australia. She works part-time as a web developer. Jessica enjoys reading, quiet time when she can get it, and being around friends and family. She has a powerful story of how sisterhood brought about restoration and healing in her life.
So welcome, Jess. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful to share this couch with you.
I know, yes.
So fantastic. Now, you've had an interesting journey with this idea of sisterhood and also building meaningful friendships. But before we dive into that, can you give us a little bit of background about your life and how you came to be here today?
I grew up practicing Catholic. I'm one of 3 siblings, the middle of 2 boys. You know, we went to Mass every weekend, and I was 7 years old when I was plucked out of the congregation by the beautiful Sister Helen, asked if I could sing, and I said, I think so. And the next week I joined the choir. And up until last year I was still involved, so a good 30 years, which was amazing. Yeah, and then I think my faith really catapulted when I attended World Youth Day in Cologne in 2005. I came home with my heart burning with love for Jesus. And I just remember seeing joy, absolute joy in everything. My heart was just bursting. And that feeling stayed with me for such a long time, and then I was able to learn a little bit more about the faith, and Mass meant a lot more to me. And then, I met, and then after that, I was invited to my old high school, Santa Maria, to share my experience at Assembly about my World Youth Day. And Alyssa was a student in the crowd at the time.
Alyssa's also been a guest on the show.
Yes, she has. It's actually, it's a wonderful story. So fast forward quite a few years and, I joined the choir at my local parish now in Good Shepherd. And I just went to Mass one day and I knew that music ministry was something that I needed and I was missing because I'd lost that spark and that joy in my heart. And God's timing is just perfect, isn't it? I went to Mass and the young adults choir was singing at that particular Mass. And I just remember sitting there going, yep, I need to join.
Wow.
So I did. And a couple of months later, they'd organised a mentoring session. It was quite a new choir. So I went along and I walk into the room and who is sitting at the end of the table is Alyssa.
Oh,
there you go.
Wonderful.
And I walked in and, we're both kind of eyeing each other off. And I sat down.
Did you recognise each other at this point?
No. Okay. I think Alyssa was, I think both our brains were churning a little bit. And then I realised that I had seen her face in a publication a couple of weeks before that. So that's where I made the connection. And, we got talking and she just, at the end, she's like, did you go to Santa Maria? And I said, yes, I did. And, we opened up, had a bit of a conversation about that. And I said, I've actually been back once to talk about my experience at World Youth Day. And she just looked at me and she said, oh my gosh, your speech made me want to go to World Youth Day in Sydney.
Really? Was she a student there?
Yes, she was a student. Wow. And I just get chills thinking about it now because, you can imagine my shock. 15 years later,
Yeah.
I've just learned that whatever I said at that assembly impacted somebody,
Incredible.
and made them want to, grow closer to God.
Yeah.
So that really, that definitely gave me a bit of a thrill. I was so pleased. And that night, we both found each other on Facebook, added each other and started talking immediately. And then a couple of months after that, Alyssa introduced me to the wonderful Roxanne. And the three of us have been inseparable ever since.
And Roxanne's also on this series as well.
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And, it was God's perfect timing because we were entering, beginning of COVID. So this was probably end of 2019, early 2020. And, I think God knew that I needed these women and a sisterhood around me to get through a really tough 2 years. I don't like to relive it, but as everyone knows, everything obviously shut down and Melbourne was tough. We got hit pretty hard, the longest lockdowns
in the world.
In the world, yeah. So, I from going to Mass and going into the city for work to then all of a sudden be shut down, isolated in your home. And, it was a blessing that my husband was still able to go to work because he was an industry that was, in building and construction, and they were still allowed to work, so they were essential. So he was able to go out and his routine didn't change so much, but mine changed dramatically. All of a sudden now I had, my daughter couldn't go to kinder. So I had to, work around that. And then I had to work around working from home pretty much, the part-time but full-time.
Such a challenging time.
It really was. It really was, and I was so blessed to have my mum and my mother-in-law and, to be able to watch the girls during that time. So I definitely that was a blessing as well for me. I know that a lot of women struggled to work and have kids at home.
Yes.
But I went through that first year was really, really tough for me. I got absorbed into a lot of thing and everyone was just trying to process what was happening and when is it going to end? And there were so many uncertainties. But then to have Alyssa and Roxanne with me and journeying with me, we would speak daily.
Wow.
We would encourage each other, this is not going to last long. There's a reason why God has put us together. We can get through this. We have each other.
Wow. Such a gift.
Absolutely, it was, and I don't think I could have lasted or gotten through the 2 years without their friendship.
Yes, absolutely. So powerful.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary how that particular friendship formed so well. And it really makes me think, that meaningful friendships. Can you share with us about meaningful friendships and particularly what sets a Christ-centered friendship apart from another?
Absolutely. I think for us, first and foremost, it was a Christ-centered relationship, a friendship. We did bond and Christ is the centre and still remains so. And I think that's vitally important. We know that God put us together for a reason. And so, we make sure that we always thank God and praise God for doing that for us. I think shared values, morals are really important. We lift each other up and we encourage each other and we love each other very much. We call ourselves the sisters in Christ because we are, I'm not blessed with sisters. So to have them as my sisters is such a blessing. And I think also, you have to look at the fruits of a friendship as well. Are they producing good fruits? Are they producing bad fruits? I've definitely had friendships in the past where it revolved around gossip and, look at what this person is doing and what that person is doing. But it's definitely not so when you have a meaningful friendship. You lift each other up and through the hardships, you encourage each other through it. And I just know, through my own hardships, which there were a lot during COVID, I wouldn't have been able to get through it if it wasn't for them, and their prayers as well, And I think a meaningful relationship, you need, the 3 Ps, the proximity, presence, and persistence.
Oh, that's great.
And we were blessed that we all kind of lived close enough, obviously in Melbourne, but, within 10 minutes of each other. So we saw each other when we could and when we were allowed and, having that daily chat as well. And we're all really busy in our lives too, Alyssa with her, with her gigs and stuff and her work part-time, Alyssa with her family and her work part-time and myself. It is challenging, but we persist. We make sure that we do schedule in time, once a fortnight, once a month, to, gather at one of our houses over a meal. There's always coffee, and dessert, and just chat it out,
chat it out.
Talk about things. There's actually a term in web development where you say, talk to a rubber ducky that's like on your desk. And it's the notion that, when you're trying to work something out in your head, you talk to the rubber ducky, and I try and explain it in layman's terms.
That's so good.
So my ladies are like
rubber duckies.
But when you're going through marriage, little marriage issues, or you're struggling with motherhood, parenting, 2 little girls, so you're going to get those struggles, lack of sleep. To be able to fall back on 2 solid friends, what, Jess, it's going to be okay, and there's one saying that gets me through is that, I can do all things through Christ, who strengthens me. It's, just very blessed to have them in our lives. But, I think also Aristotle had 3 types of friendships. It's the utility, pleasure, and the good, the virtuous. And we're definitely the virtuous, and that's the perfect friendship,
It is. At the good, where you're really willing one another's good, and you're not there to take from each other or use each other, but it's edifying for one another. And I love that you touch on that edification element of friendship, because that really is what sets, I think, Christ-centered friendships apart, that we're really drawing one another up.
Absolutely.
We're pulling each other along on the journey and pointing each other towards Christ all the time. And like you said, we go through all of these struggles, and sometimes you're just having a bad day. And I think what COVID did and the lockdowns for people, and we spoke about this with marriage, but I think in terms of just women's mental health, like loneliness is a huge issue for so many women. And I know through our Sisterhood movement, I'm actually stunned. Like, I'm blessed by beautiful friendships, but I'm stunned that some women that I've encountered literally couldn't list a single friend that they have. Yes. And it's so sad. And I think when we're struggling with isolation, we become really lonely, the problems get bigger. And so I think meaningful friendship can starve off those pangs of loneliness, isolation and depression.
Absolutely. And the flow-on effects for me in terms of the broader family and other people that I connect with are amazing.
Well, let's face it, like as women, we need to talk.
We need to
experience, we need to process.
Yeah, and funnily enough, and I know we were talking about this when we in the marriage episode, that men and women are so different, and the way we communicate are different, and often men don't have the capacity to talk into detail about something.
Yes.
Whereas,
it's really frustrating.
It is. And we can do that with the women in our lives that can really hear the detail and those deep desires of our heart. We can be seen in that different way.
Absolutely.
With the women.
And I think also, when I know that I am talking to them about my hardships, it's not just, don't worry about it, you'll get over it in a couple of weeks, or, it's really, Jess, you have to either humble yourself and do the right thing.
Yes.
There's definitely that the teaching of Christ definitely comes through as well. We're all practicing Catholics, and we all share the same goal, and that's to get to heaven and to bring as many people with us to heaven. So we definitely lift each other up there.
Yeah. So there's that challenge and accountability.
Absolutely.
As well.
Speaking the truth in love.
Yeah.
And there's that scripture that iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to be forged sometimes in friendship. And friends that will speak truth in love in a way that's compassionate and gentle. And it just really calls us on.
Yeah, it does. One thing I do notice also about experiencing the 3 of you together, I haven't had many experiences. I've seen you online together and I love it, but in real life you have this chemistry and you have lots of fun together.
We do.
Fun.
Yes.
And I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, and our families, our husbands get along really well, and the kids get along, really well. So I haven't just gained sisterhood, I've gained like another family, really. They've extended my family.
And this is the knock-on effect. Like we know, I know in our modern culture, people are busy, women have gone back to work. There's that disintegration really of a lot of community and connection with women. And, back in the day, women used to go down to the creek or the river to wash clothes and they would talk and they'd process and they'd come back home. And it's just such a beautiful gift. And I'm wondering, it's a biblical concept. And there's so many stories of sisterhood in the Bible. Can you think of any that really resonate with you that you've sort of looked to as a model?
I think the visitation.
Absolutely.
Yes. You know, love thy neighbour, pretty much. You know, when I'm praying the rosary and I'm thinking about and meditating on that mystery, I just think, you know, Mary has just found out that she's pregnant and have found out that her cousin is pregnant, and she just doesn't hesitate to get up, not think of herself, walks thousands of miles on foot, you know, and to go and help her cousin, you know. And Mary literally brought Jesus to Elizabeth, you know, and people would have encountered Jesus growing in her on her journey to Elizabeth. And I think that's also what we're called to do as well as women, you know, is to be a light in the world and represent Jesus here on earth, and do as Mary did, you know, carry Jesus and to others as we meet along the way.
Ordinariness of life.
Absolutely.
Visiting people, taking meals to people, loving people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just
Yeah. And, you know, I just think, you know, what were they talking about?
I know.
When they get there, right, you know, were they, you know, talking about, you know, the hardships, you know, St. Joseph's confusion when he found out what was going on, and Zechariah's distrust, you know, did they sit there with their feet up after a long day? And, you know, I'm sure they would have prayed together and, you know, given thanks to the Lord together. And they would have had that sisterhood. They would have sat there and had those conversations just like we would today.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
I think there's so many women, like we're blessed because we've encountered sisterhood, but there are women, as I mentioned, who haven't got those connections. Like what can people do, Jess, to, I guess if you've got this woman sitting at home with 2 little kids, she's moved to a new city, she doesn't know anyone, like what does a woman in her position do?
First of all, for me, what worked, pray, because that's definitely, I prayed a lot.
Did you pray for God to bring people into your life?
I prayed to get that joy back that I'd lost. And I think the timeline of that is basically, I prayed about that, knew that music ministry was what I was missing out on, went to Mass, and then through the music ministry is where I met Alyssa.
Yes, there's little breadcrumbs.
Absolutely, you know, there was a trail that God was leading me on to find it. So that definitely a beautiful bonus to that journey. I think, you know, pray, get involved in your local parish. I mean, that's what I did, and then look at the fruits and the wonderful thing that happened to me. You know, also, Karen, the Sisterhood conference, absolutely, you know, where you're in a big room with like-minded women.
Yes, can meet people there.
Absolutely, you know, even on, you know, thinking about prayer groups and things like that. And if you can't, just get out there, maybe start your own.
So Jess, help us out. There are women who are sitting at home, like we've expressed how we are so blessed by sisterhood and those connections. But I know through the sisterhood movement, there's been women that have come up to me saying they literally don't have a single friend.
Yeah.
And it just breaks my heart because it's so sad.
So sad.
So what can women do if they find themselves in that position where they just don't know where to go? Think about the woman who's moved to a new city with young kids, stuck at home, coming out of the pandemic. What can she do to find meaningful connection?
I think first of all, pray, because that's what I did. Get involved in your local parish because you meet wonderful people, and that's obviously how I came to meet Alyssa, and everything else has just flourished from there. The Sisterhood conference, absolutely, you know, in a big room filled with like-minded women is definitely a top thing. And if you can't find anything, start your own. Yeah. I think.
Yes. That's a good one.
Yeah, put an invitation out.
Husband used to say that. He used to say, if you can't find it, maybe you're meant to create it. So.
Yeah. Oh, it's been so fantastic having you on this episode and sharing this topic with us. Yeah, the sisterhood that you have created with Roxanne and Alyssa is really amazing and inspiring. And I think a lot of women would really, you know, desire a friendship like that.
It's very special.
Yeah, it is. Well, we're going to end today with some burning questions that women carry in their heart. They're quick questions, and we just present them to you and we get your quick response. So we're going to shoot with a couple of those questions.
Okay.
So the first question that we're going to ask you is, what can women look for? How can you add value in your relationships?
I think being there for each other all the time through the ups and the downs, you know, service, I think be of service to others too. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're great.
Yep.
What qualities do you see in a woman that you want to create a sisterhood or friendship with?
I think they need to share the same values and morals that I have as well. Otherwise it's going to be very difficult to create sisterhood if you don't have those same, thoughts. For me, I definitely a love for Jesus as well. And just be willing to walk with me through life, through the ups and the downs, not just the joys, but also be with me through the lows as well.
Yeah. Last one is, what one practical thing can women do this week to create intentional community and sisterhood?
I think just actively look, go online, have a look at what is available to you in your city or around your area, in your parish. And also I think it's really important to write a list of what qualities are you looking for in a friendship so that you can be a meaningful friendship.
That's great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jess. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode.
We really hope and pray that this has been an enriching conversation. It's invited you to really reflect on your friendships and the relationships in your life. I really want to encourage you that if you are struggling in this area of friendship, to really begin, as Jess said, to start to pray and to ask the Lord to bring those friendships and those sisters in the Lord into your life, and to then be really proactive to go out in search of those friendships.
We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us today. To get the latest updates, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Shalom World Podcasts. Love this episode? We want to hear from you. Send us your feedback to podcast@shalomworld.org. With your support, we can keep sharing the Word of God with listeners across the globe. shalomworld.org/donate. For more information on Shalom World, our ministry, and our podcasts, visit shalomworld.org. We'll see you right back here next week. This podcast is available on all online platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and others.